I, 45F, am a hotel manager at one of the most prestigious hotels in Boston. I've dedicated the last 2 decades of my life to this career, working my way up from the front desk to my current position. What started as a job to support my sister after our parents' death has become my identity, my achievement, my safe harbor in a world that hasn't always been kind. Managing this hotel isn't just about overseeing operations or maintaining standards. It's about creating moments, orchestrating experiences, and ensuring that every guest feels the warmth and elegance that has become our signature. I've guided this establishment through renovations, rebrands, and even a complete service philosophy overhaul that earned us our 5th star 3 years ago. The staff here are my family. Many of them have been with me for over a decade, watching as I transformed from a nervous young manager into someone they trust and respect. They've supported me through the challenges of raising my sister Rachel, 35F, covering shifts when she needed me at school events or during those difficult teenage years when she struggled to cope with our parents' absence. Rachel works at a local cafe now, but our bond has always been more than just sisterly. When our parents died in that terrible accident, I was 25, fresh into my management training program, and suddenly responsible for a 15-year-old who had lost everything. I became her sister, mother, and best friend all rolled into one. Every decision I made, every promotion I pursued, was with her well-being in mind. The hotel became our sanctuary. During school breaks, Rachel would do her homework in my office, chatting with the housekeeping staff and learning French from our veteran concierge. As she grew older, she'd help out at the front desk during busy periods, her natural charm making her a favorite among our regular guests. Those years weren't easy, but we made it work, building a life from the fragments of our shattered family. Romance was never a priority for me. Between managing the hotel and ensuring Rachel had everything she needed, dating seemed like an unnecessary complication. There were occasional dinners with business associates, brief flirtations at industry events, but nothing that ever felt worth pursuing. My staff would joke about setting me up, but I always declined. The hotel was my husband, I'd tell them, and Rachel was my child. That all changed 3 months ago when Ethan, 43M, checked into our hotel. He stood out immediately, not just because of his custom-made suit or the quiet confidence he exuded, but because of the way he looked at everything. Most of our wealthy guests barely noticed their surroundings, too absorbed in their phones or their own importance. Ethan observed. He noticed the fresh flowers in the lobby, commented on the vintage molding we'd preserved during renovations, appreciated the subtle lighting that took me months to perfect. "Your attention to detail is extraordinary," he said during check-in, his eyes meeting mine with genuine interest. "I've stayed in hotels all over the world, but there's something special about this place. You can feel the care that goes into every aspect." Those words resonated with me because they acknowledged not just the hotel's beauty, but the thought and effort behind it. When he asked about local restaurants, I found myself sharing not just the usual recommendations, but my personal favorites, the hidden gems I discovered during late-night walks after particularly challenging days. During his 3-night stay, we developed a routine that seemed to happen naturally. Each evening, he'd return from his meetings and spend time in the lobby lounge, perfectly positioned to engage in conversation whenever I passed by. He asked thoughtful questions about the hotel's history, my career path, my vision for the future. Unlike most guests who treat such conversations as mere politeness, Ethan seemed genuinely fascinated by every detail. On his last morning, instead of the usual corporate checkout, he left a handwritten note, "Your passion for this place is inspiring. Would you consider continuing our conversation over dinner? There's so much more I'd love to learn." He included his personal number, adding that he understood if I preferred to keep relationships professional. I spent hours debating whether to text him. Rachel, visiting my office that afternoon, noticed my distraction and insisted I show her the note. "You have to call him," she exclaimed, more excited than I'd seen her in years. "When was the last time someone actually took the time to know you, not just your job?" That first dinner changed everything. Ethan spoke about his work in investment banking with the same passion I felt for hospitality. He described complex financial strategies in a way that made them sound like artistry, much like how I viewed the intricate dance of running a luxury hotel. When I mentioned my parents, he listened with genuine empathy, sharing his own experiences of loss and resilience. Weeks turned into months, and our relationship deepened with a speed that should have alarmed me. But Ethan made everything feel natural, inevitable even. He'd surprise me with lunch at work, always remembering my staff's favorites too. During our weekend outings, he showed a remarkable memory for all the little details I'd mentioned about Rachel, asking about her work at the cafe and even stopping by to support her. "You're different," he told me one evening as we walked along the harbor. "Most people in your position would be jaded by now, burnt out from giving so much of themselves to their work and family. But you've maintained this beautiful balance of professionalism and genuine warmth. It's rare to find someone who truly understands the value of creating experiences for others." The proposal came 2 months into our relationship, during a private dinner at an upscale restaurant overlooking the harbor. The ring was elegant but not ostentatious, exactly what I would have chosen for myself. Ethan had arranged for a string quartet to play softly in the background, and as he knelt beside our table, he spoke about building a future together. "I know this seems fast," he admitted, "but when you find someone who shares your values, your dedication to excellence, why wait? Let me be part of your world, help you create something even more extraordinary than what you've already built." Rachel's reaction to the engagement news was overwhelming. She hugged me tight, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she whispered, "Someone worthy of you." She threw herself into wedding preparations with an enthusiasm that touched me deeply. It felt like we were teenagers again, staying up late to discuss details, sharing dreams and hopes for the future. The wedding plans accelerated quickly. Ethan insisted on making it a grand celebration, saying I deserved to be the center of attention for once in my life. When I expressed concern about the costs, he was reassuring. "Combine our resources," he suggested. "Your savings for the wedding, mine for our honeymoon and future home. We're partners now, right?" Rachel took charge of many wedding details, insisting it would help me focus on running the hotel. She coordinated with vendors, arranged tastings, and managed the guest list with an efficiency that reminded me of myself. "You've taken care of everyone else for so long," she said. "Let me handle this for you." Looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore. The hushed phone conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. The way Ethan and Rachel sometimes exchanged glances during our family dinners. The sudden coincidences of them running into each other when I was caught up with work emergencies. Yesterday, everything fell apart. Ethan had stopped by my office to discuss final wedding arrangements, leaving his phone behind when he rushed off to what he claimed was an urgent client meeting. The device kept buzzing with incoming messages, the notifications lighting up the screen. I never meant to pry, but a message preview caught my eye. "Can't wait until tomorrow, my love." She won't know what hit her. The sender was Rachel. My hands trembling, I opened the phone, no password protection, I realized later, because he never expected me to see it. What I found shattered my world into a million pieces. Hundreds of messages between them, going back months before I even met Ethan. Pictures. Plans. Secrets. "She's perfect for our plan," Ethan had written in an early message. "Hotel manager, substantial savings, no real relationship experience. Plus, she trusts you completely." Rachel's responses were even more devastating. "She's always been so focused on taking care of me, she never developed a life of her own. This will be almost too easy." They had orchestrated everything. Ethan's appearance at the hotel wasn't chance. Rachel had told him my entire schedule, my habits, even my favorite wines. Every spontaneous encounter, every genuine conversation, had been carefully planned. But the truth went deeper than just their affair. Ethan wasn't a successful investment banker. His designer suits were bought on credit cards, his stories of financial success were fabricated, and his promises of a luxurious future were lies. He was drowning in debt, and I was his lifeline. The messages revealed their real plan: use my savings to pay for a lavish wedding, then have Rachel dramatically reveal their affair during the ceremony. They would humiliate me in front of everyone I knew, my staff, my industry colleagues, my friends. While I was left to deal with the fallout, they would disappear with what remained of my money. As I scrolled through their conversations, I discovered something else. Messages from someone named Catherine, Ethan's legal wife. Unlike me, she knew who he really was. Their messages were full of arguments about unpaid bills, missed child support, and his gambling debts. The sun is rising now, casting long shadows across my office. In a few hours, my hair and makeup team will arrive. Rachel is supposed to be here, playing the role of devoted sister and maid of honor. Ethan will be preparing for his part in this charade, probably rehearsing his vows I now know were copied from romance movies, another detail I found in their messages. My entire life savings is tied up in this wedding. The venue, the catering, the flowers, all paid for with money I spent 20 years accumulating. Money I earned while raising Rachel, sending her to college, supporting her dreams of opening her own cafe someday. But as I sit here, watching the early morning light play across the hotel lobby I've dedicated my life to, a strange calm has settled over me. They thought they were playing me, using my trust and love against me. What they forgot is that I didn't reach this position by being naive. 20 years of managing one of Boston's most prestigious hotels has taught me how to handle crises, how to turn disasters into opportunities, and most importantly, how to play the long game. I've spent the last few hours making calls to Catherine, who deserves to know what her husband is planning. Her initial shock turned to cold fury as I shared the evidence, and she's already on her way to Boston. To my lawyer, who's been meticulously documenting everything and preparing the necessary legal actions. To the hotel's security team, who have always been more than just employees to me, they're the family I chose, and they've already put certain measures in place. The elegant ballroom where I've orchestrated countless perfect weddings for other brides will become the stage for a very different kind of ceremony today. Every detail they plan to use against me will serve my purpose instead. The 300 guests, the expensive decorations, the carefully planned timing, all of it will work exactly as they intended, just not in the way they expected. Looking at the wedding dress hanging in my office, I feel a twinge of sadness for the dreams it represented. But those dreams were built on lies, and I've always preferred hard truths to beautiful deceptions. Rachel and Ethan wanted to create a memorable scene in front of everyone I know and respect. They wanted to turn my wedding day into a spectacle. Well, I've spent my career orchestrating perfect events, and this one will be no exception. Tomorrow isn't going to go the way Ethan and Rachel planned. They wanted a wedding to remember, and that's exactly what they're going to get. After all, in my 20 years of hotel management, I've learned one crucial lesson: the customer isn't always right, but they do always get what they deserve. The sun has fully risen now, painting the city in shades of gold. It's time to prepare for the performance of a lifetime. They thought they were the directors of this show, but they're about to learn who really runs this venue. And unlike them, I never disappoint my audience. Update 1. Catherine arrived at my hotel office first thing this morning, a poised woman in her early 40s with a quiet intensity that matched my own. She brought a stack of financial documents, proof of Ethan's debts, unpaid child support, and the loans he's taken out using their joint assets as collateral. He's been doing this for years, she explained, spreading the papers across my desk. Targeting successful women, creating elaborate stories about his wealth. But this is the first time he's worked with an accomplice. Her voice caught slightly when I mentioned Rachel's involvement. We spent the next hour reviewing messages and comparing timelines. Catherine's documentation filled in the gaps in my discovery. Ethan's pattern was clear: lavish spending on credit, charming his way into women's lives, then disappearing with their money. The only difference this time was Rachel's participation, which added a layer of credibility to his con. My lawyer arrived next, reviewing everything we'd gathered. This isn't just fraud, she explained, it's conspiracy. And with the evidence of their planned public humiliation, we can add emotional distress to the charges. She's already drafted emergency motions to freeze accounts and prevent any attempts to transfer funds. Throughout the morning, messages kept arriving from both of them. Rachel sent a cheerful text about picking up the flowers. Ethan called twice about last-minute arrangements, his voice full of fake concern when I didn't answer. Each contact felt like a fresh betrayal, but I maintained my silence. The hotel staff have been quietly briefed. Security cameras are positioned to capture everything. Police officers have been discreetly stationed throughout the hotel, dressed as service staff. They're waiting for my signal, ready to act when the evidence of fraud becomes public. Catherine shared more details about their marriage, how Ethan disappeared for months at a time, always returning with elaborate excuses and promises to change. She's been gathering evidence for years, waiting for the right moment to act. When I called her last night, it was like giving her the final piece of a puzzle she'd been trying to solve. The makeup artist arrived an hour ago, setting up in my private suite. Rachel texted that she's running late, probably coordinating with Ethan for their grand performance. The wedding dress hangs ready, a beautiful reminder of how easily dreams can be weaponized. Ethan's parents have arrived, completely unaware of their son's true nature. The journalists I contacted are posed as wedding photographers, ready to document everything. Catherine will be seated in the front row, her presence unknown to Ethan until the perfect moment. Her attorney has prepared the necessary documents for immediate action. Rachel's messages are becoming more frequent, a hint of nervousness creeping into her texts. "Are you okay?" she asks. "You seem distant." The irony of her pretend concern would be amusing if it wasn't so painful. 20 years of sisterhood, reduced to this. The venue is becoming the perfect stage, though not for the reason they planned. Every detail they intended for my humiliation will instead serve as the backdrop for their exposure. Looking at my reflection in the office window, I see not a victim but someone who spent decades managing chaos. They thought they were orchestrating the perfect con, but they're about to learn who really runs this show. Update 2, the makeup artist just finished her work, every brushstroke a reminder that this isn't the bridal preparation I once dreamed of. My reflection shows perfect contouring and carefully applied eyeshadow. I look every bit the blushing bride they expect me to be. Rachel finally arrived, bursting into the bridal suite with an armful of flowers and that fake smile I now see right through. "You look absolutely beautiful," she exclaimed, hugging me with what felt like genuine warmth. How many years has she been this good at pretending? She began fussing with my veil, chattering about last-minute details, while I watched her in the mirror. "I can't believe my big sister is finally getting married," she said, her eyes meeting mine in the reflection. "After everything you've done for me, you deserve this happiness." The audacity of her performance would be impressive if it wasn't so heartbreaking. "Ethan has been sending messages all morning, 'Can't wait to see you, love,' and 'just a few more hours until forever begins.' Each text is carefully worded, designed to maintain his facade until the last possible moment. His latest message mentioned how his parents are looking forward to welcoming me into their family. The hotel's grand ballroom has been transformed exactly as they arranged, white roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers sparkling, 300 chairs perfectly aligned. My staff move efficiently through their preparations, though only a select few know what's really about to happen. Catherine is already in position, seated quietly in a corner where Ethan won't notice her until it's too late. Her attorney arrived a few minutes ago, documentation in hand. The police officers posing as staff have confirmed their positions. Rachel keeps trying to have meaningful moments with me. "Remember when we used to plan your wedding when we were kids?" she asked, adjusting my dress. "This is even better than anything we imagined." She's right about one thing, this will certainly be more memorable than those childhood dreams. Through the suite's window, I can see guests arriving. Colleagues from the hotel industry, friends I've known for decades, even some of my regular guests who've become like family over the years. They're all dressed in their finest, expecting to witness a celebration of love. Instead, they'll be witnesses to something very different. Ethan's parents are greeting guests in the lobby, his father proudly telling everyone about his son's successful investment career. Their world is about to shatter as completely as mine did yesterday. The string quartet is setting up, practicing the wedding march that will never reach its traditional conclusion. My lawyer just sent confirmation everything is in place legally. The moment Ethan and Rachel make their move, they'll trigger a sequence of events they never saw coming. Rachel is now helping me with my shoes, still playing the devoted sister. "Are you nervous?" she asked, squeezing my hand. "It's normal to be quiet before such a big moment." I managed a small smile, thinking how right she was about the magnitude of what's coming. The wedding coordinator just signaled that we have 30 minutes until the ceremony begins. Rachel excused herself to check on a few details, probably making final arrangements with Ethan. I'm alone in the bridal suite now, surrounded by the trappings of what should have been the happiest day of my life. In 30 minutes, they'll learn just how right they were to fear my attention to detail. Update 3, the wedding march began, and I started my walk down the aisle. Ethan stood at the altar, playing his part perfectly, the handsome, successful groom overcome with emotion. For a moment, the scene looked exactly like the fairy tale ending they'd planned to destroy. I was halfway to the altar when Rachel stepped forward, still in her maid of honor dress. "I'm sorry, but I can't let this continue," she announced, her voice carrying through the ballroom's perfect acoustics. "Ethan and I are in love. I'm carrying his child." The gasp from the audience was exactly what they'd wanted. Ethan's expression shifted from shocked groom to apologetic lover right on cue. They'd rehearsed this moment, I realized, planned every detail of their dramatic revelation. "Grace," Ethan started, taking a step toward me. "You've been good to us, but Rachel and I—" "Actually," I interrupted, my voice calm and clear, "let me handle the announcements from here." I nodded to the back of the room. The large screens, originally intended for wedding photos, flickered to life. Their messages appeared, enlarged for everyone to see. The careful planning, the calculated deception, the jokes about my trust and their planned betrayal. Catherine stood up from her seat, walking deliberately toward the altar. Ethan's face went pale. "Hello, darling," she said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Surprised to see your wife here?" The word "a wife" echoed through the ballroom, followed by another wave of gasps. The police officers who had been posing as staff moved into position. My lawyer stepped forward, documents in hand. On the screens, financial records began to scroll, the fraud, the theft, the elaborate scheme they'd planned. Ethan Thompson, the lead detective, announced, "You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and grand theft. Ms. Rachel Anderson, please remain where you are." Rachel's face crumpled, the confident smile replaced by panic. "Grace, please," she begged, reaching for me. "You don't understand. He promised we'd be together. He said once we had your money." "Once you had my money, what?" I asked, finally letting my anger show. "You'd run away together? Start a new life with the savings I earned while raising you?" Ethan tried to make a break for it, but the hotel's security team was ready. They blocked every exit. His father stood up, demanding explanations. Instead of answers, he got copies of the evidence, his son's fraudulent history and the string of betrayed women. Catherine's attorney stepped forward, serving Ethan with divorce papers and freezing his assets. The guests watched in stunned silence as the police led Ethan away in handcuffs. Rachel remained frozen in place, tears streaming down her face. "What's going to happen to me?" she whispered. "That depends on the district attorney," I replied coldly. 2 officers approached, escorting her from the ballroom. 20 years of sisterhood ended with the click of handcuffs. My hotel staff moved efficiently through the chaos, escorting guests to the reception area. Standing in the empty ballroom afterward, surrounded by the flowers and decorations meant for a very different ceremony, I felt strangely peaceful. The betrayal still hurt, but watching their perfectly planned scheme collapse had brought its own kind of closure. My lawyer confirmed the next steps: Ethan would face federal charges, Rachel was cooperating with prosecutors, and Catherine's case looked solid. Justice would be served in multiple courtrooms. Update 4, it's been a month since the wedding that never was. The legal proceedings moved faster than expected, primarily because both Ethan and Rachel chose to cooperate with prosecutors once they realized the extent of evidence against them. The court awarded me $50,000 in damages from Ethan, though collecting it will be another matter entirely. The judge was particularly harsh in his comments about the premeditated nature of their scheme and the betrayal of family trust. Catherine's case for back child support was also successful, and Ethan is now facing criminal charges in 2 other states. Rachel tried to contact me several times during the proceedings. "I know I can never make this right," she wrote in one message, "but please, you're the only family I have." I deleted each message without responding. The sister I raised, the one I thought I knew, never really existed. My lawyer advised that Rachel's cooperation with prosecutors might help her avoid jail time, but she'll likely face probation and mandatory restitution payments. She's still pregnant with Ethan's child, a fact that feels like a cruel joke given how she used to talk about wanting me to be an aunt someday. The hotel has become my sanctuary again, though in a different way now. My staff's loyalty during the whole ordeal touched me deeply. They've formed a protective circle around me, screening calls, redirecting unwanted visitors, and ensuring I can focus on what I do best, running this place. News of the failed wedding and subsequent arrests spread through the hotel industry quickly. Surprisingly, it's enhanced my reputation rather than damaged it. Takes real strength to handle that kind of betrayal with such dignity, one of my regular clients commented. Ethan's parents sent a lengthy letter expressing their shame and regret. They offered to cover the wedding costs, but I declined. This was never about the money, it was about trust and family. I've already converted the planned honeymoon suite renovations into a new executive conference center. Catherine and I have maintained contact, sharing information about Ethan's ongoing cases and supporting each other's legal proceedings. She's become an unexpected ally, someone who truly understands the depth of his deception. We're both better off knowing the truth, she told me, no matter how much it hurts. The wedding dress still hangs in my closet. I should probably donate it, but something keeps me from taking that final step. Maybe it's a reminder not of what I lost, but of what I discovered about my own strength. The woman who bought that dress was trusting to the point of naivety, the woman who owns it now knows better. Rachel's things are still in her old room, the one I kept ready for her all these years. Yesterday, I finally packed everything into boxes and called a storage company. They'll hold it for 30 days. I sent her the details through my lawyer. After that, whatever remains unclaimed will be donated. The hardest part isn't the betrayal itself anymore, it's realizing that 20 years of memories are now tainted. Every holiday photo, every shared milestone, every late-night conversation with Rachel, was any of it real? Or was she always just playing a part, waiting for the right moment? I've thrown myself back into work, finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of hotel management. My staff has noticed that I'm more focused than ever, channeling all my energy into new projects and improvements. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at a hotel management conference about crisis handling. Looking at Rachel's signature on the settlement papers this morning, I barely recognized her handwriting. But then again, I barely recognized anything about her anymore. 20 years of sisterhood ended with a few strokes of a pen. I'm not angry anymore, just tired of carrying the weight of what happened. The hotel needs me, my real family, my staff and loyal clients, need me. And for the first time in 20 years, I only have to take care of myself. Sometimes, late at night in my office, I catch myself thinking about Rachel and the child she's carrying. But then I remember the messages I saw, the calculated betrayal, the years of deception, and I know I've made the right choice. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes.